In 2020, in the real world, when all the world was locked under a pandemic, I myself had gone to Europe with the Army as part of a training exercise. This was extended because of the pandemic, but, well, that's where I was. During that time, I had, shall we say, the wisdom to bring my computer with me. It would give me something to do when I wasn't working, when I wasn't doing things, doing Army things. Among other things, what took most of my time, most of my free time, was a game of Civilization. We'd gone to Poland, so thinking nothing of it, or rather just kind of having fun with the concept, I chose to play as the Polish. And this is that game. It is the year 2102 AD, turn 605. There are only 3 nations left on the map. Now, I made a lot of mistakes. First and foremost, if we open the menu, I'd set it to King difficulty. I don't typically play a game at that difficulty. That is significantly higher than what I typically do. Of course, I did make it this far. Again, it's turn 605, and I am rank 2 on leaderboard. Let's go to victory progress. There is only one victory condition that I have chosen to play with: domination. I have 6 original capitals. The capitals Honolulu, Mozonkani, Delhi, Vienna, and Assur, as well as my own. Against me are the Romans, with 6 likewise of their own. Now, one of the many mistakes I'd made was choosing to halt my war against the Polynesians without finishing the job. And okay, so this save is where I left off in 2020. I'd attempted to pick this game up in the past and found very quickly that I was out of my element somewhat. But I am dead set on pushing through. So, I'm going to record it. I'm going to shift my strategy somewhat. I'm going to adapt my planning. And we're going to go through that. Establishing the situation, where I last left off, I'd had this... So, I failed to recognize that with the Brave New World rule set, you were unable to win the game simply by being the only one holding their original capital. So I had this idea to build a strike force and pave my way to Rome with nuclear weapons. And as those turns rolled on, in those other saves, I realized the Romans outnumber me dramatically. they outclass me dramatically. Now, this probably can be remedied. After all, I've got a decent gold production, got a decent production in general. And it's not like I have a small nation. I also have room to expand. And while most of the choice terrain is already being taken by myself, or by the Romans, I have options, and more cities will be helpful no matter what. So there's that. In those other saves, I also made another crucial mistake. I didn't think to finally snuff out the Polynesians. The Romans proceeded to take these two cities and gain a toehold on my continent. And I very quickly realized that would mean my own doom. So, I'd actually made a lot of effort in trying to... actually make such a strategy work, however harebrained it may have been. I'd actually had a pretty decently strong military force. So... I believe we'll begin first by eliminating the Polynesians from the map. I actually hold the key seat of the United Nations, so that would actually make me capable of basically brutalizing the Romans in terms of policy. However, if the Polynesians were to align themselves with the Romans, that could go south for me very quickly. So we're going to ensure that doesn't happen. Additionally, if I don't have myself aligned properly to engage in a war against the Polynesians, they could become a major problem for me. Maybe not the biggest problem, but a problem. So, I believe that's what we'll focus with. What else? What else? If I remember correctly, these warriors were the first warriors I'd had in the game. I love that kind of thing. No, they're not. No, they are. They are. They actually don't have any of the later experience bonuses that would become important. As I speak, I'm thinking about my next move. I'm not going to actually begin in this video. I'm just going to introduce the situation. See, as much as I talk about plans and doing things, I realize at this difficulty, for as many carefully laid plans as I actually have to be doing a lot now to pick up slack for my own mistakes. Might actually snag naval tradition at some point. I don't know what I'm going to do with the policies. See, it's a little bit of everywhere, and typically I don't do this kind of thing. Typically, I open with tradition and liberty, and proceed there. Fill out liberty, fill out honor, snag oligarchy, and then by that time, I'm either grabbing aesthetics or opening aesthetics or commerce, and then considering my policies. But of course, that is what it is. I also had very little understanding of how tourism and Great Works worked. So when I started with an ideology, I believe, if I remember correctly, I actually selected autocracy rather than order. But the Romans, they run by order. And that forced me to flip. Somehow the Polynesians have not flipped. They went freedom. Well, we're going to stomp them flat now, aren't we? So, there's that. I'm thinking, additionally, something I ought to do is push out, well, not additionally, and I'm not thinking, I know I need to do this. My plan is to also push out settlers. I keep coming back to these islands because I believe these are the last sets of uranium that haven't been settled. Also, the graying out of the map. I don't know why. It might just be that this computer is nearly 8 years old and very upset with the size of this save file. Oh well. Yeah, I think... Well, there's a uranium... there's some uranium, but it's just one, and it's in the middle of Roman territory. See, uranium, if it's not obvious, if it wouldn't be obvious, is going to be a rather significant thing for my warfighting. Because, one, at the late game, something I like to do is to build a group of GDRs, mechs, giant death robots, and bring them to bear against the enemies in places where I want to complete overmatch and punch through the battlefield. Since this is the Brave New World expansion, I will be focusing on using XCOM squads in place of mechanized infantry. And yeah. Why am I producing fighters? Missile cruiser, not a bad idea there. I've basically got to get every city building. Why are you building a castle? Oh, happiness and culture, that's right. That would do it. See, all these cities are puppeted. I really should have been more aggressive about unpuppeting cities as I go. But mistakes. No big deal. So look at the Civilopedia. Boop, 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 boop. Boop. Modern era. They've reshuffled everything. I'm not used to that. See, as much as I play this game, I also play Civilization 4 a lot. Without any expansion packs. Okay, so battleships require oil. Not bad. Atomic bomb. Destroyers do not. Missile cruisers do not. Okay. Yeah, I see. Should I probably have like a spreadsheet or something and go through all this off camera? Probably. But it is what it is. Modern armor uses aluminum. Aluminum. Not aluminium. Notice the spelling. Giant death robots require uranium. However, they have a combat strength of 150 as opposed to 100 for modern armor and XCOM squads. So the reason why XCOM squads become the backbone of my military is because they have a combat strength of 100 as opposed to 90, and while they don't have the fastest movement, they have the Sky Ranger ability, which allows me to drop them on target wherever I like. Thus, it is that I can actually push an offensive with a giant death robot and modern armor. Though I did read at some point that stealth bombers are useful. Yeah, interesting. Guided missiles. Ah, guided missiles have taken a massive nerf, because I remember at one point that guided missiles have a combat strength of 120. I don't know where I remember seeing that from. That was a mistake. I hit a button that I didn't need a button to push. So, yeah. Oh, there's an oil resource that I didn't exploit. See, every time I've come back to this, I've been plagued by the mistakes of my past self. And as silly as I'm being, I'm serious. I've been plagued by them. Where are you going? Oh, something else I want to check. So let's see. Submarines are just submarines. However, nuclear submarines, they do not require... Interesting. They do not require any other resources. So a thought that I'd had at some point that comes back to me is I was kind of onto the right path, thinking about posting up a strike force on the border with Rome, but trying to use it for an actual offensive was something of a mistake. I think the move actually would be to sit down and do a study of the largest cities in Rome, in the Empire, and prepare nuclear submarines to strike them. Which would mean striking the Roman heartland preferentially, but you see, like, Thebes has a population of 32, and so on and so forth. So if ever I have to start a war with the Romans, I can just, boom, and put a pretty serious dent into their battlefield capabilities. Oh, those are pillaged because barbarians spawned. Put a serious dent into their capabilities against me. So I think that would be a good idea. But I think I shall leave off here. As I'm sure by now you've gotten a pretty good overview of what the situation is, where the planning was, and frankly what mistakes were made. There was a city somewhere around here, and I think I'll plant one there, and that'll benefit from all this. But all of this will have to be in a future video. Until then.